What skills did I want to gain from this class? I wanted to be a less nervous speaker. So when I went up there, I wanted to avoid saying so much and learn how to just be able to organize my thoughts and have them flow smoothly throughout my speech. I also wanted to learn how to project my voice, use less notes, and become a more confident speaker. Specific interpersonal communication interactions I would use in the future. So in chapter 5, they mention mindful listening, which is an active high-level information process. It takes a lot of physical effort. Your heart rate will quicken, respirations are increasing, and your body temperature will rise. A person can tell just by your body language if you're listening to them or not. So by mindfully listening to them, you can ensure that you're getting the person's message and that they feel that you're listening as well. In chapter 2, they mention self-concept, which is the way you think and understand yourself. So how you view yourself affects your ability to communicate with others. For example, if you get nervous around authority figures, it's gonna prevent them from you feeling confident when you speak to them, which will then affect their view of you, and then you'll perceive yourself as if you went through the situation in a negative way. So overall, it's going to affect the way that you feel towards the end of the process. However, if you were comfortable with the authority figures, it would have the opposite effect. So you're going to come out feeling positive about the situation. My strongest presentation, without a doubt, it was probably my persuasive essay. Even though I was still nervous going up to speak, I didn't get as choked up as I usually do. I felt it was my strongest because you could see the improvement throughout the videos from the first speech. I pushed myself to step away from the podium for the persuasive speech so it wouldn't be used as a shield. I kind of used it in the beginning as a barrier between me and the audience, and that and affected my voice projection. I also use less notes, which helped me to have more eye contact with the audience. When you're not looking at your notes as much, you have the ability to look at the audience, and it really does show. It was kind of hard to choose which one stood out to me the most. For Kristen's informative and her persuasive speeches, they were very strong. She used pictures and stories to show her connection to the topic. She also captured and really engaged the audience with the plant potting and making mochi. They were really fun and creative activities. She also spoke with confidence and had a nice PowerPoint to match what she was saying. What organization patterns did you use to organize your interview speech? I used time order by using a sequence of events in order to start out by talking about my grandpa's childhood and growing up and moving onto his adulthood and what led up to his career choices. I added how his interests related to mine and tried to correlate the timelines together so that whatever age I was mentioning, it would show what we were both doing at the same time. So for example, when my grandpa was working and I was young, he would always have me all the time. So it kind of shows that what was happening at that time. What method of informing did you use for your informative speech? I used the description method of informing to describe what it might be like to work as a pharmacist and why it's important. I tried to paint a picture so that the audience might be able to put themselves in that position. I also used when I was explaining the steps of how to become a pharmacist. For example, when I mentioned that you'd have to complete an undergraduate degree and then move on to a graduate program. So this really helps the audience to easily understand what the process entails. And for what techniques did you use for your persuasive speech? For my persuasive speech, I used the proposition of value and proposition of facts. In order to have a proposition of values, you have to first have a proposition of facts. So I let the audience know the facts and the statistics about breast cancer and how genetic testing would be beneficial to those who have seen cancer in their families. Proposition of value, I wanted people to explore the worth of genetic testing and see why it's important. For those who do have cancer throughout their family, it would be a wise decision to do the genetic testing so that they know their options that are available to them. How have my public speaking skills improved? So by the last speech, I was trying to use minimal notes. That way I could have more eye contact with the audience. I worked to improve my posture by stepping away from the podium so I wouldn't be tempted to lean on it. And I was able to work on my voice projection and the amount of times I would use nervous fillers throughout my speech. What did your instructor write were your strengths? And what did your classmates say you did well consistently? Instructors said I had good information, good narrative connections, and a good flow. My classmates mentioned that I often had interesting topics and a great way of trying to tie my real life to what topic I chose. What were the theme and your areas of improvement? And did you work on those throughout your speech? Most of mine was better visual aids, don't lead on the podium so I could project my voice, don't use notes, eye contact, and use less of I did try to work on these. From my point of view, I could see that there was a difference and that I did try to improve on these things. Like I did mention earlier, I did step away from the podium for the last speech, and even though I was still using notes, I had used a lot less than from the beginning. This also helped my eye contact. From the beginning, my visual aid wasn't very effective. I hope that by the end of it, the visual aid did become better. What do you think you could have done better in your performances? I could still work on using less notes and watching out for By using less notes, it'll also help increase my eye contact because I won't constantly need to be looking at my notes. And then even though I use way less notes in my persuasive speech, I still notice that I use them quite a bit and it takes away from what I'm saying. And what are your professional and personal goals for the future? I hope to one day become a nurse in a care home setting. In the meantime, I will have to finish school, and that's where I think I'll do most of my presentations. I feel this class has prepared me a little better for the presentations I have ahead of me. It's helped me to use more eye contact and less notes, which when you don't use your notes all the time, it feels like you know what you're talking about. If you can eloquently and flow very well with what you're saying, it makes the audience feel like you know what you're talking about. And it's helped me to use more it has showed me that I need to work on my nervous fillers. And it's also pushed me not to use the podium as a barrier between me and the audience.